with that said, this is just unbelievable. This is MSNBC. And like every time I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. Stuff like this is like, I have to, because there's nobody else. Like, the idea that this can, and I will tell you, probably will never end up on this show. I'm unlikely that I will be invited on this show, but this is just stunning. Watch this clip.
For the very strong victory they gave us at the Iowa caucuses on Monday night.
I'll pause it for 1 second. I also want to say one more thing. You have, in the past, we have never talked about SDEs, the state delegate equivalent.
I'm crazy for him.
We've never talked about that. If it was if two people tied for delegates coming out of there was no like, but we looked at the state delegate equivalents and they got 3.5 more. So therefore they're the official winner. We've never ever had that conversation. This year we have an extra metric, which is we know the actual votes.
Yeah.
So we get to see the sausage being made.
We know the actual votes thanks to
now. So you
Senator
have
Sanders.
to weigh. There is nothing more legit about the SDEs than the actual votes.
Right.
In fact, one could argue the actual votes, before you do the math and weight different people's votes more, is probably a more telling metric.
Yes.
But either way, there's no way the SDEs are more important, because at the end of the day, it's just how many national delegates you get. It doesn't matter what the SDEs are to the presidential race, except for the delegates that get made.
Yes.
Same with the votes up front. But here, go ahead.
1,000 more Iowans came out on caucus night to support our candidacy than the candidacy of anyone else. And when 6,000 more people come out for you in an election than your nearest opponent, we here in northern New England call that a victory.
Try that. Who called it a victory? It's not on my. Didn't he tie with Mayor Pete, like the 37-year-old, not even anymore mayor?
Well, and you know what's sad? Not to tar him with the same brush, but I mean that he's disingenuous, to say the least. He's not telling the truth. I mean, part of the problem with Iowa was, and everything we've learned about elections since 2000 is, what do you want to do? Simplify, simplify, simplify. What did the Iowa do in the caucuses? They made it more complex. They had 3 different metrics. So what Bernie is doing is counting that first metric of people who came in that night willing to support Bernie, but many of whom switched to Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete, my heart goes out to him.
Pause it before we get on the sob story about Mayor Pete. What that dude just said was a lie.
Yes.
That is not what happened. The people who switched from Mayor Pete to Mayor Pete in the second round in the realignment came from other candidates, not from Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders did not have less support in the second round than he did in the first.
Like we
he had
these
more
numbers.
Yes. Yeah. But he is lying.
He's
in the same breath as saying that Sanders is lying, which is pretty.
And saying that Sanders is lying, and Sanders said just like the most plainly true thing he could say too.
Right.
There was not even any nothing about that was even attempting to be weaselly or misleading about what Sanders said.
No, he was very explicit.
It was
and what this guy Engel or whatever this guy's name is, I don't know. He's a Rick Stengel. What? That's his real name. What he's also trying to imply, because everybody's so concerned about this, is that the Rules Committee said that Iowa needs to be more transparent. And that's what big part of the problem has been, is that now we realize that this has probably been going on for decades.
There has probably never been an accurately reported Iowa caucus. Probably never once an accurately reported Iowa caucus.
But now that you have to write down the number of that first vote, which is really complicated, now that is what is the problem. It's like, look.
Well, as usual, the problem is exposing the rot.
Exactly.
now everyone can see the rot.
Continue.
What did the Iowa do in the caucuses? They made it more complex. They had 3 different metrics. So what Bernie is doing is counting that first metric of people who came in that night willing to support Bernie, but many of whom switched to Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete, my heart goes out to him because having covered many Iowa caucuses and looked for that headline at 11 o'clock or midnight, he would have gotten these incredible headlines, the same headlines that Barack Obama had in 2000.
He would have the same headlines that Barack Obama got in 2008, except for he didn't win by 5%. Except for he didn't have more delegates than Bernie. Except for that, he would have had the exact same headlines. He would have had some great
headlines if everyone had reported that he'd won at 11. He would have had some great headlines.
Well, I guess Obama had 16, Clinton had 15, Edwards had 14 coming out, but he won by a percentage, 37% as opposed to 29.4%. So, yes, I don't think he would have had the same headlines. In fact, no. But I mean, without a doubt, Buttigieg, Buttigieg got his headlines. He got them.
Yeah, he did. And I mean, I don't know. This is maybe completely wrong, but there is maybe a degree to which he sort of screwed himself in a minor way by making everyone who actually isn't a liar mad at him.
Right.
But because if he had not behaved like a petulant baby and pretended to win when he didn't, the headlines would literally have been shockingly good second showing.
Exactly. If he had come out and been explicit, we don't know who the winner is, but the fact that we don't know who the winner is a victory for us.
Yeah.
Like he tried to he backtracked and tried to say that in retrospect.
Yeah.
But if he had said like, we don't know who the winner is, but that's a victory because everybody thought that we would not be in contention.
Yeah.
Then I think he would have had a much better go of it. But in the final analysis, I'm not sure it matters.
No, I don't know. I don't think it does really.
Well, don't you think he was trying to give the mainstream media a narrative to work with?
Well, I mean, he obviously
and legitimize.
That's what obviously what he was trying to do.
And we see this happening in the MSNBC clip. It just didn't catch on quite in the way that he wanted it.
Oh, he was trying. I mean, so wasn't Klobuchar. I mean, that's what definitionally a campaign is supposed to do.
I think that clip makes me think, and I said this I think on Monday night, but like an underrated thing driving the massive age divide in Democratic politics is that old people watch cable news all the time.
I mean,
and that's what they're watching.
It will work on some layer of the electorate, just not the whole thing.
Well, I think the Rick Stengel, whatever the guy's, the way that they look at this this sort of announcement victory after Iowa as this highly prized thing makes me really suspicious about like some of the delays and stuff, and like wanting to keep that out of Bernie's hands. But I'll just leave that there.
I mean,
my feeling on this is that like the Iowa Democratic Party would have allowed Bernie to cleanly win it, I think. Like, but the networks, they want the Mayor Pete out of nowhere story, and they just sort of want that for that story.
Yeah, back in. I guess it was, Hart was 84, I guess.
Yeah.
He won 16% of the Iowa caucus vote to Mondale's 42%.
Yeah.
And they almost declared Hart the winner.
Yeah.
I mean, it was huge. That's why he got so much attention.
Yeah.
And that's why he was like, follow me around.
Yeah.
And made a mistake.
And
I remember I was doing an internship in the Connecticut State Assembly. And the guy I was working for was like the Gary Hart dude in central Connecticut.
Yeah.
And he was pretty bummed. He was pretty bummed. But yeah, in Iowa, they were basically like Gary Hart. I mean, we wouldn't even know the name Gary Hart if they hadn't gotten so excited about his 14% in Iowa.
I mean, talk to longtime campaign reporters, and they tell you explicitly that what they're trying to do is create a story that is, from their perspective, compelling. And front runner that they don't like that much wins is not a very compelling story.
Right. I mean, you can see the NBC guy who is embedded with Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
You can see him like the bones are sticking out of like the flesh of. Flesh is I'm a reporter. The bones are like, I want my guy to go as far as he can so that I can like keep this gig.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is the game that they play. Like everybody who followed Trump now hosts a show on these networks. That's the way the news game works.
They wrote a book about it.
They try and make it the most compelling aspect of the story that they can. All right, we got to take a quick break. Oh, you know what?